Welcome to the Love on the Go podcast, brought to you by Carolina's Matchmaker. I'm Laurie Burzak, and for over 17 years, I've been helping singles find the relationship of their dreams all over the Carolinas. Along the journey, I've met so many amazing professionals and experts from various fields, and I'm excited to introduce them to you. What's my goal? I want to help you look at love and relationships in a new way and to grow in your understanding of how love works. Let's learn together how people have overcome personal obstacles and have found love, first and foremost with themselves. The ultimate goal is realizing that you are worthy and deserving of love. Let's get started. This is going to be a fun podcast today, y'all. So I have Nick Notas on here. He's a dating coach for men, and he's been helping people for 16 years in 37 different countries build genuine confidence and attracting great women. And he's got an incredible website. So you guys, men and women, really need to check it out because there's so many great articles on there and guides to dating and relationship. Definitely a fabulous place to go for resources. Nick and I met at the Matchmakers Alliance conference in November. Welcome, Nick.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Thanks for coming on Love on the Go. So, Nick, I know you're based out of Boston, but you help people internationally, obviously. Tell me exactly, what do you do with clients? Like, who hires you and what are the different activities that you do with them?
Yeah, so at this point in my career, I have a pretty broad spectrum of who hires me. I
Okay.
will say, like, the three most common things that people are coming to me for
Mhm.
are a general sense of confidence, the ability to meet people in the real world,
Mhm.
and getting comfortable showing their interest in flirting with someone. And I do everything from teaching theory to role play practice myself or with other coaches. And then even I host retreats where we spend days teaching them inside a house somewhere in a city around the world. But then every single day, we're also going out and actually socializing together.
Oh, wow. Okay. So are you going to like bars and restaurants, and are you kind of like Hitch, like you're getting guys to walk up to women, talking
Yeah,
points?
totally. Um, Mix of both. So we go out during the day some days where we go
Uh-huh.
out to a park or a beach and hang out and just try to, meet people. And obviously I'll go up and introduce with them. But then I
Mhm.
also encourage the men to, collaborate and bond and do it together. But then we'll go
Uh-huh.
out to marketplaces and bars at night as well.
How did you learn how to do this?
For my own needs. I was very much a computer nerd growing up. The long story short is all at once, a lot of things happened where I was kind of thrown into the real world. I had to pause my studies, and most of my friends had moved out of state. So
Okay.
I'm like, I'm a nerd. My only real connections in life was through school. How do I
Uh-huh.
go out and do this? And at the time, unfortunately, there was probably only pickup advice. And
Okay.
as a 19-year-old, that was very enticing to be like,
Right.
wow, I can date beautiful women. But mostly just studying a lot of what was already written, which is pretty terrible at the time. And then going out relentlessly for especially the first 5 years just to be social with people. It wasn't just to only pick up women, but really to say, like, I've never been out in the real world and figured out how to just meet somebody.
So the pickup lines from before, just like, hey, baby, what lights your fire? Just like the super tacky ways to, oh, have I seen you here before? That kind of thing.
Definitely.
All that was
That
out there.
and worse.
And way worse.
Magic tricks, palm reading routines, pretending like you knew this girl back in school and
Right.
being like, oh, I think I remembered you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Everything.
Didn't work. Okay. So you kind of learned organically, probably through a lot of trials, what works and doesn't work.
Yeah, so I was learning organically, and it probably started with reading some pickup and dating advice, but then
Mhm.
pretty soon after, my background was in psychology. So I
Mhm.
started also consuming every single book and speech and video on anybody that I thought had any merit in self-improvement or social
Right.
skills or anything like that. And then really meticulously trying it out and saying what actually works, what feels natural, and just a lot of trial and error and a lot of failing at first.
So have you found that since COVID that men are not approaching women at all organically anymore?
Yeah, 100%.
It's
I
awesome.
think COVID plus the younger generation being more apprehensive to it
Yep.
and being less nightlife oriented, less drinking oriented,
Mhm.
has made men basically stop talking to women in person largely.
Plus the dating app.
Plus the dating apps. Yeah,
Yep.
everything. Plus more social media.
Right.
Um, the irony that I tell people though is there's the contrast principle in psychology. When something is novel or new to us,
Mhm.
we actually respond to it better. And so, ironically, men don't talk to women out anymore. But the more women I talk to are like, I wish more men talk to me more than ever. And they respond really well to it.
Okay, so give us an example of something that a man could say to a woman where she would respond well.
Yeah, so generally, I'm going to say I want you to be first present in the moment. So if you're at a coffee shop and you heard a song that hadn't come on in a very long time, just share a quick statement about that. Wow, I haven't heard this track in like 10 years. It really brings me back. Okay. If you were
Okay.
in a marketplace and you're looking at different foods, it might be like, oh my God, I don't know what to choose here. I'm thinking about getting, the avocado toast. Have you tried it? Right.
Mm,
Even something that seems insignificant, but is sincere and present
mhm.
generally goes over well. Otherwise, I tell men that you can always be just more honest and more direct and saying something like, hey, I saw you sitting over here. I don't want to interrupt your lunch, but I wanted to quickly say hi. And I think as long as you, again, feel a little bit of what you're saying and it's not some rehearsed line that you're saying 5,000 times, people are pretty warm and receptive. It's mostly about not triggering like this guy's coming over and trying to put on errors and trying to like pick me up and be weird. Because I
Yeah,
think women are more than ever also conscious of that, right? They don't want the guys coming over being a pickup artist.
totally. And so what I would say to people listening is just practice talking to people without any kind of idea of an end game, without it even feeling like you need to get a phone number or a pickup or take her out on a date. Just practice talking to people. That's like step one. I'm sure you tell your clients the same thing.
That is like the best thing I tell my clients. I love
Right?
that.
And just like
Uh,
break the ice and get through that fear because it's kind of like, let's take it back to like middle school dance. The guys would have to like walk across the room to ask the
that's,
girl to dance. Scary, scary, but they did it. They
yep,
would do it. I don't know if they're doing it now, but they would do it back in my day because, the prize at the end was you get to dance with a girl. So, and obviously we're talking hetero for this podcast.
sure.
Although I don't know, are you working with LGBTQIA at all yet? Or
Yeah, it's just they don't come to the community doesn't come to me as much because they generally want to work with somebody who's very openly
yeah,
advertising it. But I have plenty of clients that are in the community over my
yeah.
career,
Okay, perfect. So all people can go
all
to
people,
yep,
including women. It's
yeah,
just again, I started with men because that's what I knew, and
yep,
then it built and
nice.
but I love working with basically anybody who wants to learn.
Yeah, and basically learn like how do you interact with your community? How do you get through fear of talking to people, strangers, in an effort, A, to just get outside of yourself and have some kind of conversation with someone that you don't already know, and then B, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's like you said, I think that it's a lot easier than people think, as
Hmm.
long as you're just focused on having that connection rather than an outcome.
Yeah,
The irony is, so many men that I talk to can talk to other men, groups
mhm,
of conferences, or tons of other scenarios where they have to walk up to a stranger and introduce themselves. The
yeah,
difference is in those moments, they're not focused on, like you said, can I get a number? Can I sound cool?
yeah,
Can I make sure she's attracted to me? And that's what creates a lot of the anxiety.
yeah. It's interesting because I have a client right now that is she's a brilliant woman and she's a physician and she just went out with a guy and she said he's like super nerdy and she said even I kind of had to lead the conversation, but you know what, he asked her out, he's been texting her every day, he's funny, and she said, I always told you I like nerdy guys, and it's adorable, and you know what, I think this is going to work, this match.
It's
So
awesome.
men don't need to be the alpha, studly, cool guy to get the girl. In fact,
No,
there's less of those men out there. All the regular dudes are kind of like you and the rest of the population. Like a lot of
what
times
are
the
you
women
saying,
will.
Laurie? I'm not the epitome of the alpha male.
Yeah, exactly. The
Um,
coolest nerd I know. I'm just kidding. Nick Notice.
no, but you're right.
You said it yourself in the beginning.
Yeah, no, I will own it. I am a nerd at heart, and
Maybe he
I
didn't.
think confidence and charisma is not about, like you said, necessarily being a certain type of alpha male type of person. It's
Yeah.
more so just being comfortable with expressing who you are as an individual.
Yeah.
And if that's nerdy and you could talk about it with passion and
Yeah.
excitement, that is
Yeah.
attractive to a lot of people.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, we all put on this air of trying to be so cool, but aren't we all no, aren't we all nerds at the heart of it? I mean, probably so.
You
We all
don't put on an air, you just are
we're,
cool.
we're posing, just posers. Oh, thanks, Nick.
Oh,
But you've got a great sense of humor, and that's kind of what also breaks the ice. So don't be afraid, guys, to pull out your sense of humor and, whatever it is, if you can make somebody laugh, that is the key to it all. Don't you agree?
yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
It's so ironic that guys will cut off the quirky sides of their personality, and that's what makes them interesting, right? They're like, I don't want to seem too weird or too
Yeah.
silly or too goofy or whatever. But then they just become so serious, and like
Yeah.
that's not interesting either.
Yeah. I sent a guy on a date recently, and the woman said he didn't crack a smile the whole time. All he was doing was trying to think about what he was going to say next. And she was
Uh,
like, I'm not looking for that. And I was like, I get it. So then I coached the guy and I said, listen, your job on your next date is I want to hear the woman say he was fun, he was smiling, he was interactive. And he said, got it. Writing
uh,
notes.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah, I know. But you know what? People get nervous on dates and they don't even think about the fact that they're not smiling. So I always say like you have to be like aware of what your face is looking like. And that takes a sort of a higher level of consciousness, but everybody is capable of doing that. And even, even if you don't have anything to say, just ask them some kind of open-ended question. What do you suggest to people to talk about on first dates?
Yeah, I'll echo what you said. I think asking open-ended questions that focus more so on getting to somebody's experiences or their
Mhm.
emotions, rather than just the facts, right? If they were a nurse, it's not, you asking endlessly, "Oh, what is your schedule like?
Mhm.
Where did you go to school?" But more
Right.
so like, "What do you love most about your job?" Or "What's a really funny situation you had with somebody in the last month?" And it's more open-ended and it creates more of a personal discourse. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I tell guys, start at least with your strengths. So journal out some topics or hobbies or activities that you're really passionate and knowledgeable about.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to bring those up because you kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
If you know the subject you're talking about, it's easy for you to just talk without thinking about it. And
Yeah.
then naturally, like you said, you're probably going to be more animated and more happy and more expressive about it,
Yeah.
rather than trying to just only go with the flow for 3 hours.
Mhm.
And you're like, I don't connect to any of this.
Yeah.
So I think asking great open-ended questions and bringing some things to the table that you are comfortable with that work in your favor.
Right. And if they get you talking on a date, don't go on and on and on and on and on about the topic that you love most to talk about. Like try to cap it. Even if they seem super interested in what you're saying, they could be just sort of going with the flow, like, okay, he's talking. So make sure to kind of gauge your time and energy and make sure to shift it back to the person that you're with.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said.
Mhm.
In general, in psychology, okay, we all want to be understood and we all
Mhm.
want to be appreciated. So I tell guys, like, I don't want this to be some tactic, but I'm like, if you can put 60% of the conversation on genuinely being curious about the other person,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit more about letting them talk and being genuinely interested,
Yeah.
you're going to get the outcomes that you want without even trying, right? They're going to be like, wow, this person was really excited to learn about me and
Yeah.
they were actually attentive rather than, like you said, they're just droning on or bragging. And you get the feeling that the guy is just trying to impress, right?
Right.
Rather than connect.
Right. And Nick, you have a really great way. He's smiling. You guys need to watch this on YouTube just to see
Oh, God.
how Nick responds. You have a great way of complimenting someone authentically, where it's not like about looks, but it's about the way they react or the way they think or the way their humor works or, success or whatever that I think is unique.
Well,
Is that
thank
some
you.
thought? Do you do that on purpose, or is it just organic for you, or do you think about that at all?
Um, It's organic now.
Yeah,
Probably back in the day, I had to like consciously work to appreciate, when you're 19, you're like, oh my God, here's a beautiful woman. She's so beautiful, right? And then you got to like look past that and say, okay, I want to actually understand somebody.
yeah,
It's become very organic, but it is one of the core things that I try to teach men. Because to be honest, they're so bad at it. And I don't understand. It feels like such an easy win to
yeah,
think about one thing that you care about somebody that you've recognized rather than I tell guys like, it's okay, you could say it sometimes, but every guy's like, I told her she has nice eyes, a nice smile, and she was pretty. I was like,
right,
wonderful. But so did everyone else.
right, right. Yeah, people want to hear that they like the way they think, that people like the way they think,
Yeah,
because
or
that's
they
what's unique about them.
yeah, that's what makes you an individual. And
Exactly.
that's something you have to earn, right? Not to say you don't have to earn your looks and your appearance because you put time into it, but if somebody's cultivated being an open person
Uh-huh.
or a very warm person, that's something that they've actually invested in, and now it's paying off, right? And you recognize that.
Yeah, and the fact is that people are looking for people who like them. They want to feel appreciated, they want to feel liked, and they want somebody to reach out consistently. It makes you feel good when you're dating somebody and they don't reach out every day. It doesn't feel good. It makes you feel anxious and it makes you feel like you're underappreciated. So if I always feel like the men, if here's what I've noticed when I send out a woman with a man and she says to me, I'm on the fence, but they do all the things right, they get on a second date. If the guy
Hmm.
waits 3 weeks to get on a second date, the woman's like, I can't do this. It's like, I thought about it. I'm just not attracted to him. But if he's like, hey, I have a really great idea. There's a jazz band playing out at the park next weekend. Do you want to hit that up? And then there's this interesting Vietnamese restaurant I've been trying to get into and I got a reservation. That sounds cool. It's like, why wouldn't she do it? So, he's thoughtful, he's planning dates, he's in touch, he's communicating. That's how you get to the second date. This is my opinion. You're the real expert, Nick,
Oh,
with
come on.
guys. This is
I
all
think this
you
is the
do,
study of people. Everybody can be an
right?
expert in this field, right? And
So
I truly
fascinating,
believe that.
so
Um,
fascinating to me. But I feel like, if somebody really feels valued, that is extremely appealing. And
it's
it
so
really,
funny you say that because that is
right?
like what I have to unwire in men that they're
Yeah,
like, no, we had a date. I have to like wait a week and play it super cool and aloof. And I'm like, sure, if she like I mean, not even sure. If she had a good time and she
yeah,
enjoyed your company, she wants
yeah,
to know that you felt the same way and she wants to see you again at some point, not a month down the line. And
yeah,
if that's somebody who wants to wait a month, probably they're also not ready for anything more substantial, right?
yeah.
But you touched upon something else that's really important, which is just like put in the 10% extra effort to
Mm-hmm.
curate an interesting experience.
Mm-hmm.
And just like compliments, I think it's one of those things that's like the smallest amount of effort with a massive payoff, right? Every guy's just like, oh, I'll take her to coffee for
Yeah,
a second date. I'm like, no, look around in your area. Like, think about like, let's go to this cool bookstore that has like more indie books, and then go
yeah.
to like a tapas wine bar I've been wanting to try.
Love it.
Um, and that alone is like, who wants to say no to a cool experience?
100%. We often will send out first dates for my matchmaking crew to like we always like for there to be a little food involved. So if they go to hang out at like a restaurant bar in the bar area, even if they're sitting at the bar, it's fun. But I always say, if you get a drink, make sure there's no matter what, there needs to be appetizers involved. Sometimes people get nervous, they don't want to eat on a first date. I totally get it. But I also feel like it's kind of hard to create romance over a morning coffee.
Yeah, 100%. Environment plays such a big role, right? The
Yeah,
difference of being in a well-lit coffee shop with 100
yeah,
people working around you
yeah,
versus being in a wine bar with
yeah.
appetizers sitting and
Yeah.
some mood lighting is huge.
100%. Yeah. And then a second date, I always recommend an activity date. So we have a client who
Cool.
recently went axe throwing and they said it was so much fun. They had a great time. We've sent people to like a puttery where they go mini golfing and there's like food and drinks there. We've sent people to the botanical gardens, to the Whitewater Center here in Charlotte. There are so many fun things to do, especially in the Carolinas. and everywhere, let's be honest. And but you have to put on your thinking cap before you go on these dates. And if anything, even if you're like on the fence if you like that person or not, at least you're going to have some kind of experience that you're going to have fun and learn from.
Yeah, that's exactly. At the worst, you'll do something cool.
Yeah.
Uh, but I also think that's a secret sauce that nobody talks about is I think so much of connections not being established sometimes is just the environment and the experience. Putting
Mm,
people into the right headspace, feeling connected because they shared some kind of, it's like what we know about any kind of people that go through something together, they tend to feel bonded. So like you said,
yeah.
you're playing golf together, mini golf, and you guys are laughing and it's
Yeah.
competitive. That alone creates a level of closeness that might not have happened, and it's a missed connection if you did something where you're just sitting down casually and it's the same date that both of you have had the last 10 times.
Yeah, totally. Well, let me ask you a question. Sometimes I'll get a socially anxious man hire me. And then obviously that's also, well, you know, part of the clientele that you handle. How do you coach a guy to push past his anxiety and kind of show up as himself on a date? What do you suggest to people that just get really up in their heads?
Yeah, I think any kind of work that grounds them in the moment.
Hmm.
So maybe leading into the date and early on, especially even if they're going up into it, can they like lower their heart rate and actually relax their body language and change their physiology to carry themselves well? It seems small, but there's so many studies of it's cyclical, right? It's not just if you feel terrible inside your mind, it's going to reflect on your body, but also the way you carry yourself makes you feel a different way. So if you're walking into the date and the whole time you're driving in and you're like clenched and looking down,
Yeah.
you're not going to feel great. So I think it starts with like changing the way you carry yourself and the
Mhm.
demeanor and your relaxing your breath. And then
Mm,
once on the date, can you pull yourself into the present? Can you
mhm.
focus on listening to what is really being said? Can you focus on making good eye contact and being curious about them?
Yeah.
Can you focus on listening to your breath or sensation in the moment? There's a fantastic book. I really love promoting this. I have nothing to do with it, but The Charisma Myth. Um, and it literally talks about the most charismatic people in the world make the other person feel like they're the only person in the room. And that comes with really focusing on being present and trusting that everything else will come. So a lot of presence work, a lot of mindfulness work, and then a lot of work kind of de-stressing before they even show up.
Okay. All right. The charisma myth. I've written that one down. Interesting. Okay. I know that a lot of times when men approach women, it feels a little creepy.
Hmm.
So how is it that people can do that without appearing that way? And what makes somebody creepy?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is internally to feel better. It's what
Hmm.
you said. Try to let go of the outcome.
Hmm.
And instead focus on I want to connect and add value to this person's day. I want to learn something about them. I want to show them that somebody is genuinely friendly or just wants to add a positive moment to their week. And it's really hard to feel bad about contributing to somebody or wanting to know something about them or wanting to give a genuine compliment if you see something that you admire because it is a positive influence. As opposed to if deep down you're still like, okay, I need to make sure I get the number, you feel like you're taking. And I think that's what makes a lot of men feel guilty. They feel like they're taking something that the woman doesn't want to give to them. So I think if you can focus on, sharing and being excited about somebody and being curious, your own creepiness levels subside.
Yeah.
And then remember that what makes somebody creepy, what I tell a lot of guys early on is one, as long as you're not very full forward or very vulgar early on,
Hmm.
that's probably not going to go over poorly. Like if you said, "Hey, I saw you over here and I don't want to bother you, but I wanted to come introduce myself," like I said earlier, it's not a very creepy statement. If you're like, "Hey, gorgeous, how you doing? Come talk to me."
Right.
Uh, totally different thing. And then the
Yeah.
other thing is take a boundary. If somebody says no or they're busy, then accept that gracefully and wish them well. And I think as long as you do that, I think as you feel like I'm not trying to take somebody from something from somebody, but rather trying to connect and give, and I can take a no if I get it. The odds of you being creepy is basically zilch, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Um, I
Let
will
me,
say, and I know we're tight on time, but I will say, inevitably there might be some person in this world that defines you as creepy and has nothing to do with you, but rather if they are attracted to you in that moment.
yeah.
Um, And in those times, you just have to say that is a projection of themselves, right? As long as you are being a kind person and you can listen to a no, I don't think you should ever feel bad about just seeing if somebody wants to connect, right? I make the analogy I've had many people in my life come up to me that I've not been interested in, including, I mean, look at me, I'm like many gay men hit on me in my life, and I never judge them negatively, right?
Sure.
As long as they're polite and cool and everybody's fine,
I mean, like
like
compliment.
why would I care if they're interested in me? It's flattering, right?
100%. Yes. Okay, that makes sense. All right, I have two more questions for you. Number one, how do you suggest to a guy who is always friend zoned to break out of that cycle?
To just get comfortable starting to show interest in some way sooner than later, right? It should
Don't
be
wait too
authentic
long.
interest.
Okay.
But genuine compliments that are a bit more than friendly,
Mhm.
um, physical contact at some point that is slightly more than friendly, leaning over, an hour into the date, hey, what else can I get you for a drink? And putting your hand on somebody's back, as long as
First,
they've felt comfortable with you, getting into slightly more personal or intimate questions, basically doing things that you could not do to a male friend or a colleague that
okay.
shows I'm interested in more. If you start to hold longer eye contact, you start to compliment, you start to ask more romantic questions, you start to create some physical contact that's more than like, hey, how you doing? I think
Right.
all of those show I am confident in what I'm looking for here.
Okay.
And that puts the other person into that headspace. Okay, does that feel good? Do I want to get into that headspace? Um, but basically every guy that ends up friend zoned, the answer is they show nothing that they couldn't say to a male friend.
Mm. Okay, that's great. And is this on the first date, second date? How soon in?
Uh, Times have changed, Laurie. Outside of matchmaking, I think matchmaking is actually an exclusion where people are coming in saying, okay, if this person's cool enough, I'm going to go on a second date. So you don't need to show as much interest early on.
Mm.
Um, but I will say for most people, you have to show a little bit of interest on the first date, even. Because like half my job is guys coming to me saying, I've been going on dates for 5 years. I feel pretty good at conversation. We have a good time. But then the woman says, I didn't feel chemistry and I never even get the second date. And then
Yeah.
you add in a couple of moments where they have a romantic moment or they look close or, you know, and all of a sudden they're getting second dates again.
Yeah. Okay. Love that. And then my other question is, how do you help men viewed as kind of sexy or boyfriend material? It's kind of what you just said, but I don't know if there's anything else to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking about sexy, I guess they're both overlap. Sexy and boyfriend material is take care of yourself and show that you have some pride in how you look, how you
Yeah.
present yourself, your appearance, the way you
Yeah.
carry yourself,
Mm.
and have some level of forward thinking,
Yeah.
responsibility, ambition, passion, right? Because if I come in and I'm, groomed, I don't have to be wearing super designer clothes. It
Sure.
shows this person actually cares about himself and takes pride in the world, the way the world works. And that's
Hmm.
important as a partner. And then he has some level of ambition or passion, something that he's looking ahead to, and he's not scared of the world. He's not scared of responsibility. I think that frames him to be a potential partner. And I don't want to talk negatively against men, but feel like more than ever, I was talking to my wife about this yesterday,
Hmm.
so many young men are afraid of the future. More than ever, I hear so many young men afraid of any kind of commitment, any kind of like personal responsibilities or long-term relationships. And they're
Hmm.
like, I can't get a woman to date me. Well, it's like, yeah, if she's going to pick her one guy for the rest of her life, she wants to know like this can be a stable future that grows somewhere. And
Right.
you can't just be like, most of my hobbies are I go home after work and play games, watch Netflix and go to sleep.
I said I only have two more questions, but I have one last one.
Go
How
ahead.
do men know when a woman wants him to make the first move?
So, if it's more obvious, you're going to get signs of openness. She's going to sit closer to you. She's going to give you more eye contact consistently. She
Mm-hmm.
will lean into you.
Hmm.
And I just tend to find more warmth, more openness, more investment to be a decent indicator.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I tell men you're not always going to get that. And you kind of use some of the flirting that I talked about, a compliment or some light touch, as a litmus test. If it is received well and she still seems engaged and open and close and letting you feel close to be close to her,
Mhm.
fantastic. If you go to touch her and she pulls away or kind of distances herself, then she's not ready, at least for the time being.
Okay.
So I think like openness and investment, and then if you're starting to flirt a little bit on a lighter level, Does she seem receptive to it, or does she seem really standoffish?
Okay, perfect. This is great. Gosh, I could talk to you all day. This is really, really interesting. Thank
Thank
you.
you. You too. I love the good questions.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, Nick, how can people find you on socials?
On socials, YouTube, if you just go to Nick Notice, you'll see that I put up tons of long videos and short videos.
Mhm.
Otherwise, on Instagram, at Nick Notice as well.
And Nick is with a CK, Nicknotas. Okay.
Perfect.
And I'll put all of his everything in his website, nicknotice.com, in the show notes. And once again, thank you, Nick. This is really interesting and informative. And thank you for all the good work you do.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Love on the Go. I hope you join us on our next episode. You can make sure to know when it is by following us wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed it, it'd be great if you left us a review. I'd appreciate it. In the meantime, to learn more about me and how my team can help you, visit carolinasmatchmaker.com. Until next time.